Eleanor Grace Hartwell dropped to her knees in the snow and screamed. Not a cry for help, not a whimper, a scream that tore from somewhere so deep it burned her throat raw. She had walked 17 miles through the Montana blizzard. Her fingers were blue, her dress was frozen stiff as iron, and the woman who had called her too fat to be seen in decent company had taken everything. Her wages, her reputation, her future. Now Eleanor was going to die in a snowdrift and nobody in the world would care. That was when she heard the wagon wheels. The snow was not falling anymore. It was attacking, each flake a tiny knife cutting into exposed skin. Eleanor tried to stand, but her legs buckled. She caught herself with hands that had stopped hurting an hour ago, which meant they were dying. She knew enough about Montana winters to understand that. 38 years old, 12 years of loyal service. And this was how it ended. Face down in a drift somewhere between Helena and nowhere. With nothing but a carpet bag full of clothes she had sewn herself and a letter of termination that called her a thief. The wagon wheels grew louder. Eleanor lifted her head. Through the white curtain of snow, she could make out a shape. A horse. No, two horses. And behind them something dark and solid moving toward her. She should wave. She should call out. But her arms would not cooperate and her voice had frozen somewhere in her chest. The wagon stopped. A man's voice cut through the wind. Whoa! Now, whoop! Oh! Boots hit the ground. Heavy footsteps crunched through the snow. Getting closer. Eleanor closed her eyes. Whatever happened next, at least she would not die alone. The voice came again. Ma'am? She forced her eyes open. A face swam into view. Weathered, bearded, with eyes the color of winter sky. He was crouching beside her, his hat dusted with snow. His expression caught somewhere between concern and calculation. Ma'am, can you hear me? Yes. The word came out cracked. Barely human. Can you stand tried? Can't. He nodded once, as though that was all the information he needed. Without another word, he slid his arms beneath her, one under her knees, one behind her back, and lifted. Eleanor gasped. Sir, I'm too heavy. He was already walking toward the wagon. Lady, I've lifted calves that weigh more than you. Save your breath. She wanted to argue. She always argued when people mentioned her size. But the cold had stolen her fight and all she could do was let this stranger carry her through the blizzard like she weighed nothing at all. The wagon had a canvas cover, and beneath it warmth. Relative warmth, anyway. Eleanor blinked as her eyes adjusted. And suddenly she was not alone. 5 faces stared back at her. Girls. All of them. The oldest looked maybe 16 with sharp eyes and sharper cheekbones. The youngest could not have been more than 7, clutching a rag doll with button eyes. The oldest girl's voice was flat. Papa. What is that? That's a woman, Willa, the man said from behind Eleanor. And she's freezing to death. So make room. The girls shuffled aside, creating a space among the blankets and supply sacks. The man laid Eleanor down as gently as if she were made of glass. Nell, he said to the youngest, give her your blanket. But Papa, it's my special blanket. The little girl's lip trembled, but she pulled a worn quilt from around her shoulders and laid it over Eleanor. The fabric smelled like wood smoke and something sweet. Honey, maybe. Or childhood. Eleanor's eyes burned. She blamed the cold. The man climbed back onto the driver's seat and the wagon lurched forward. Through the canvas opening, Eleanor could see his broad back, steady against the wind. Thank you, she managed. He did not turn around. Don't thank me yet. We got 8 miles to go and this storm ain't getting prettier. The oldest girl was still staring at Eleanor with those knife-sharp eyes. Where did you come from, Helena? That's 20 miles back. You walked 20 miles in this 17. I started before the storm hit. The girl's expression did not soften. Why Eleanor considered lying. She had gotten good at lying over the past 12 years. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Of course the roast is not overcooked. I am sure your son did not mean anything by it. But she was too tired for lies now. Because I got thrown out, she said, and I did not have anywhere else to go. The second oldest girl leaned forward. Maybe 14 with dark hair and darker eyes. Thrown out of what my position? I was a cook, a housekeeper for the Ashford family in Helena. Rich folks, this from a girl of about 11 with freckles and a suspicious squint. Rich enough to ruin me. The oldest girl crossed her arms. What did you do? The man's voice carried back from the driver's seat. Willa, leave her be. I'm just asking, and I'm just telling you to stop. Woman's half frozen. She does not need an interrogation. Willa fell silent, but her eyes never left Eleanor's face. Measuring, judging, finding her wanting. Eleanor could not blame her. She had been finding herself wanting for 38 years. The wagon rocked and swayed. The wind howled outside the canvas like something hungry. Eleanor let her eyes close. Let the darkness take her. Let the questions wait. When she woke, the wagon had stopped. End of the line, the man's voice said. Eleanor sat up slowly, her body screaming in protest. The canvas flap was open, and through it she could see a house. Not grand, not pretty, but solid. Wooden walls, a stone chimney with smoke curling from the top, a porch that sagged on one end, but standing, still standing. The girls were already climbing out, their boots disappearing into the snow. The man appeared at the wagon's edge, his hand extended. Can you walk now? Eleanor tested her legs. They still felt like wood, but they held her when she stood. I think so. Good. Take my hand anyway. She did. His grip was rough, calloused, warm. He helped her down from the wagon, and for a moment they stood face to face in the falling snow. Name's Thaddeus Brennan, he said. Folks call me Thad. Eleanor Grace Hartwell. He nodded once. Welcome to Brennan Ranch, Eleanor Grace. It ain't much, but it's standing. Another man burst from the barn. Older, thinner, moving fast despite the snow. Thad. You need to see this. Thad's expression shifted. What is it, Jasper 3? Head of cattle missing from the north pasture. Fence wire cut clean through. Thad's jaw tightened, his hand curled into a fist at his side. Blackwood. The older man nodded grimly. Boot prints led right toward his property. How many times is this now? Third time in 2 months. Eleanor registered the exchange, the tension in Thad's shoulders, the worry in old Jasper's eyes. There was danger here, not just from the weather, but from something else. Someone else. A man named Blackwood who was stealing cattle and cutting fences. Escalating. Thad looked at Eleanor, then at his daughters who had stopped halfway to the house, then back at the barn where old Jasper waited. We'll deal with it, Thad said quietly, after we get Miss Hartwell inside. The inside of the house was chaos, coats thrown over chairs, boots piled by the door, a table that had not been cleared in what looked like days. The smell of something burning coming from a pot on the stove. Thad pulled out a chair and began giving orders. Willa, get that fire going proper. Hazel, clear the table. Iris, find some dry clothes for Miss Hartwell. Addie, help your sister. Nell. He looked down at the youngest who was already climbing onto a chair. Just don't break nothing. The girls scattered like startled birds. Eleanor stood in the doorway dripping snowmelt onto the floor, feeling like an intruder in someone else's disaster. Thad gestured to the chair he had pulled out. Sit before you fall. She sat. He poured something from a kettle, not coffee, something darker, more bitter, and set it in front of her. Drink. It will warm you from the inside. Eleanor wrapped her hands around the cup. The heat was almost painful against her frozen fingers. Mr. Brennan. Thad. She took a breath. I do not know how to thank you. What you did out there. What I did was pick up a woman who was about to become a snowdrift. I had nothing to thank, he sat across from her, his own cup in hand. What I want to know is what comes next. Sir, you said you got thrown out. No position, no references. I am guessing Eleanor's throat tightened. No money. Enough for maybe a week if I do not eat much. Thad took a long drink from his cup. His eyes never left her face. You got family anywhere? Someone expecting you? No one. Friends? I had a life in Helena. Had one. 12 years of it. But when the Ashfords decided I was a thief, everyone I knew decided the same thing. Willa had come back into the room. She stood by the stove with her arms crossed, listening with that sharp expression. Were you, she asked. A thief, Willa Thad started. It's all right. Eleanor met the girl's eyes. No, I was not. Mrs. Ashford lost a pearl brooch. Her son had gambling debts. It was easier to blame the fat cook than admit her boy was a thief. She heard the bitterness in her own voice and did not try to hide it. I gave that family everything. 12 years of my life. My hands, my sleep. And when they needed someone to blame, I was convenient. The room was quiet except for the pop and hiss of the fire. Thad set down his cup. You know how to cook? The question caught her off guard. Yes, of course, clean. I kept a 12-room house spotless for 12 years. Handle children. Eleanor looked at Willa, at the other girls who had drifted back into the room to listen. I never had any of my own, but I helped raise Mrs. Ashford's 3. Thad nodded slowly. He looked at his daughters, then back at Eleanor. Something shifted in his expression. Not warmth exactly, but something like recognition. My wife Ruth left 3 years ago, he said. Walked out in the middle of the night. Said she could not stand the winters. The isolation, the work. Said she could not stand. He stopped. Swallowed hard. She left. That's all that matters. Eleanor did not know what to say, so she said nothing. I got 5 daughters and a ranch that needs running. I can handle the cattle, the horses, the land. But this house, he gestured at the chaos around them. I am losing it, and I am losing them. Papa Willa started, it's true and you know it. You girls are raising yourselves, and you are doing it angry and scared and alone. That ain't right. That ain't what I wanted for you. The youngest girl had climbed into the chair beside Eleanor. She leaned against Eleanor's arm like they had known each other for years. Are you going to stay with us? Eleanor's heart clenched. Sweetheart, I do not. I am offering you a position, Thad said. Room, board, fair wages, you keep this house running. You help me raise these girls, and you got a place here as long as you want it. Willa made a sound of disgust. You cannot be serious. I am always serious. You do not know anything about her. She could be lying about everything. Could be. Thad's voice was calm. But I know what I saw out there. A woman who walked 17 miles through a blizzard rather than give up. A woman who could have frozen to death but kept going anyway. He looked at Eleanor. That tells me more than any reference letter. Eleanor's hands were shaking. Not from cold this time. Why me? Because you were there, Thad shrugged. Because you need a roof and I need someone who will not run. And because my girls deserve better than what I have been able to give them alone. Nell tugged at Eleanor's sleeve. Please stay, please. Willa is mean when she cooks. And Papa burns everything. And I miss having someone who smells nice. Eleanor almost laughed, almost cried. The two felt dangerously close to each other. She looked around the room, at the mess, at the suspicious faces of the older girls, at Thad's steady gaze, at Nell's hopeful eyes. This was madness. She did not know these people, did not know this place, did not know if she could survive another rejection when this inevitably fell apart. But outside, the storm was still raging. And inside, for the first time in years, someone was asking her to stay. All right, she said, I will stay. Nell squealed and threw her arms around Eleanor's neck. Thad nodded once, like they had just concluded a business deal. The middle girls exchanged uncertain looks. And Willa. Willa stared at Eleanor with eyes full of cold fire. She will not last a month, Willa said. They never do. Then she turned and walked out of the room, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. Eleanor watched her go. She understood that anger, had carried her own version of it for years. Don't mind Willa, Thad said quietly. She's protecting herself. Eleanor met his eyes. She's smart to be suspicious. I am a stranger. She does not owe me trust. Something flickered across Thad's face. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. Let me show you to your room, he said. The room was small. A bed with a quilt that had seen better decades. A dresser with a cracked mirror. A window that looked out over endless white. It ain't much, Thad said from the doorway. It's perfect. He almost smiled. Almost. Dinner's in an hour if you are up to it. I will cook. You do not have to. I want to. It's what I do. And your girls deserve a proper meal. Thad studied her for a long moment. Then he tipped his hat. Actually tipped it like something out of a dime novel. And left. Eleanor stood alone in the little room listening to the wind throw itself against the walls. She should be terrified. Should be planning her escape. Figuring out how to get to the next town. The next opportunity. The next place that would eventually throw her out too. Instead, she unpacked her carpet bag. She hung her spare dress in the wardrobe, placed her hairbrush on the dresser, set her mother's Bible on the nightstand. The only thing she had left of her. The only thing the Ashfords had not managed to take. Then she went downstairs to make dinner. The kitchen was a disaster, but Eleanor had seen worse. She found flour, lard, the remains of a chicken, some shriveled potatoes, a handful of dried herbs that still had some life in them. And an hour later, the table was set with chicken pot pie, fresh biscuits, and something approaching order. The girls filed in one by one. Addie first, silent and watchful. Then Iris, who immediately started straightening the silverware. Hazel came next, sniffing the air like a suspicious cat. Nell bounced in, already reaching for a biscuit. Willa came last. She sat at the far end of the table, as far from Eleanor as possible. Thad took his place at the head. He looked at the food, then at Eleanor. And for just a moment, something passed across his face. Something that looked almost like hope. You did this in an hour. I have had practice. He served the girls first, then himself. Eleanor waited until everyone had full plates before taking her own portion. The first bite was silent. Then Nell made a sound of pure joy. This is the best thing I ever ate, Nell Iris said automatically. Do not talk with your mouth full. But it is. Hazel was eating so fast she was barely chewing. Addie had slowed down, savoring each bite with her eyes closed, even Willa. Eleanor watched Willa take a bite, chew, swallow. Her expression did not change, but she took a second bite, and a third, and she did not stop until her plate was clean. There's more, Eleanor said, if anyone wants seconds. 3 hands shot up. Willa's was not among them, but her plate was empty, and that said enough. After dinner, Eleanor washed the dishes while the girls scattered to their evening routines. Thad lingered at the table, nursing a cup of coffee. You are good at this, he said. Cooking's easy. It's just following instructions. I do not mean the cooking. He was watching her with those winter sky eyes. I mean all of it. The girls, the house, you walked in like you belonged here. Eleanor scrubbed at a stubborn spot on a pot. I am good at making myself useful. It's how I survived 12 years in someone else's house. This could be your house too. She stopped scrubbing, turned to face him. Mr. Brennan. Thad. Thad. She took a breath. I appreciate what you are offering more than I can say, but I have learned not to get comfortable. People like me. We do not get to stay. People like you. Eleanor gestured at herself, at her broad shoulders, her thick waist, her sturdy frame. I am not what people want in a woman. I am too big, too plain, too much. The Ashfords reminded me of that every day for 12 years. And now you think I am going to do the same. I think everyone does eventually. Thad stood, walked toward her, stopped close enough that she could see the lines around his eyes, the gray threading through his beard. My wife was a beautiful woman, he said quietly, slender, delicate. Everyone who saw her said I had married above my station. He paused. She's the one who left me with 5 children in a hole where a family used to be. So you will forgive me if I do not put much stock in what people look like. Eleanor's throat was tight. That's kind of you to say. It ain't kind, it's honest. He stepped back. Get some sleep, Eleanor Grace. Tomorrow we start for real. He walked out before she could respond. Eleanor stood alone in the kitchen, dish towel in hand, heart pounding for reasons she could not name. Through the window, the storm was finally dying. The snow had stopped, and somewhere beyond the clouds, stars were beginning to peek through. She finished the dishes, banked the fire, checked the locks on the doors. Then she climbed the stairs to her little room, lay down on the bed that was not hers, and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally came. In her dreams, she was walking through snow again. But this time when she fell, someone was there to catch her. When Eleanor woke, the house was already stirring. She could hear footsteps overhead, the clatter of something falling. Willa's sharp voice giving orders. She dressed quickly, her spare dress, not the frozen one from yesterday, and made her way downstairs. The kitchen was chaos again. Hazel had apparently tried to make porridge and had burned it to the bottom of the pot. Iris was attempting to salvage what she could. Nell was crying over spilled milk. Literally. And Addie sat in the corner drawing in a notebook, ignoring everything. Willa stood in the middle of it all, looking like she wanted to scream. Morning, Eleanor said. Every head turned. I will take it from here. Eleanor crossed to the stove, assessed the damage, made decisions. Hazel. Scrub that pot. Iris, get me fresh oats from the pantry. Nell, stop crying. Milk wipes up. Addie, she glanced at the quiet girl. You are fine. Keep drawing. For a moment, no one moved. Then Hazel grabbed the pot. Iris headed for the pantry. Nell sniffled and reached for a rag. Willa stared at Eleanor with something that might have been hatred, or might have been relief. You think you can just walk in and take over? I think I can make breakfast without burning down the house. After that, we will see. Willa's jaw tightened, but she did not argue. She just turned and walked outside, slamming the door behind her. Eleanor watched her go, then got to work. 30 minutes later, the table was set with fresh porridge, bacon, toast, and eggs. The girls ate like they had not seen real food in weeks. Maybe they had not. Thad came in from the barn, stomping snow from his boots. He stopped when he saw the table. You are up early. I am always up early. Sit. Eat. He sat. He ate. He did not say anything, but the look he gave her over his coffee cup said enough. Around midday, old Jasper burst into the kitchen, where Eleanor was kneading bread. Thad, more cattle gone. Eleanor's hands stilled in the dough. How many? Thad's voice came from somewhere outside. 5 head this time. Fence post knocked down. Boot prints in the mud, heading toward Blackwood's place. Eleanor moved to the window. She could see Thad and old Jasper standing by the barn. Thad's shoulders were tight, his jaw set. Even from a distance, she could see the fury he was trying to contain. He's escalating, old Jasper said. I know. What are you going to do? What can I do? Ride to his ranch and call him out, get myself killed, and leave 5 daughters with no one? Old Jasper did not answer. Eleanor watched Thad run a hand through his hair, watched him look at the house, at the windows, as though checking to make sure his daughters were safe and warm. Then he turned and walked toward the north pasture with old Jasper following. Eleanor went back to her bread, but the weight in her chest had nothing to do with the cold. The days began to blur together. Snow, work, meals, sleep. But slowly, very slowly, the girls started to thaw. On the second day, Eleanor found Hazel in the kitchen trying to make porridge again. The pot was beginning to smoke. Let's try again, Eleanor said. Together this time. Hazel's jaw was set, defensive, but she moved aside. Eleanor guided her hands. Lower heat. Keep stirring. There. You see Hazel's hands move gracefully with the spoon, almost like dancing. You have a gift for this. Hazel ducked her head, but she was smiling. Mama never let me in the kitchen. Said I would make a mess. Messes can be cleaned. Skills last forever. On the third day, Eleanor discovered Addie drawing in the barn. The girl was sitting on a hay bale with her sketchbook balanced on her knees, drawing the horses with remarkable detail for a 9-year-old. These are beautiful, Eleanor said softly. Addie looked up, startled. For a moment, Eleanor thought she might run. But then the girl smiled, small, shy, but genuine. You think so, I know so. Do not ever stop drawing, Addie, not for anyone. On the 4th day, Eleanor found Iris scrubbing the already clean floor at midnight. You do not have to fix everything, sweetheart. Iris's hands stilled on the brush. But someone has to. That someone is not you anymore. Iris looked up, her face crumpling. But what if you leave too? Eleanor knelt down, eye to eye with the girl. Iris, I cannot promise that nothing bad will ever happen. Life does not work that way. But I can promise that I am not going to walk out in the middle of the night. I am not going to disappear without saying goodbye. And I am not going to stop caring about you no matter what. Promise? Promise. Iris threw her arms around Eleanor's neck and held on like she would never let go. Nell needed no convincing. The youngest girl followed Eleanor everywhere, held her hand while they collected eggs, fell asleep against her shoulder while Eleanor mended clothes, called her Miss Eleanor with such sweetness it made Eleanor's chest ache. Willa remained distant, but Eleanor noticed small changes. Willa no longer left the room when Eleanor entered. She no longer made cutting remarks at dinner. And occasionally, very occasionally, she asked questions about cooking, about sewing, about things a girl her age should know. Eleanor answered every question. Never pushed, never presumed. Trust could not be demanded, only earned. On the 7th morning, old Jasper found 3 dead chickens near the creek. The livestock would not drink from the water source. Thad tested it himself, brought a sample to his lips, and spat it out. Arsenic, or something like it. Eleanor was hanging laundry when she heard. She watched Thad and old Jasper ride to the creek source, watched them return an hour later with something in old Jasper's hand. A cloth bag, stained with white powder. Blackwood's brand on the base, old Jasper said. Lazy bee, he is not even trying to hide it anymore. Thad's face was stone. Can we prove it? You know we cannot. He will have 10 men swear he was nowhere near that creek, and Sheriff Morrison owes him money. So we are on our own, for now. Eleanor folded the last sheet and carried the basket inside. She did not speak of what she had heard, but that night when Thad sat alone on the porch, she brought him coffee and sat beside him. This is not over, she said quietly. I know. He will try again. I know that too. They sat in silence, watching stars appear in the clear sky. The storm had passed, but another kind of danger was gathering. After a long moment, Thad spoke. I cannot protect them from him, can barely keep them fed. And now he is poisoning us out. You are not alone in this, Eleanor said. You have old Jasper. You have the girls. You have me. For how long everyone leaves eventually. I am not everyone. Thad turned to look at her, really look. And for just a heartbeat, Eleanor forgot to breathe. Eleanor Grace Hartwell, he said slowly. Who are you? I am nobody special. Just a woman who walked 17 miles through a blizzard. That's not nothing. It was survival. Nothing more. He reached out, touched her face, his hand rough, calloused, warm against her cold cheek. I do not believe that, he said, and I do not think you do either. The front door opened. Nell stood in the doorway in her nightgown. Papa. Addie had a nightmare. The moment shattered. Thad dropped his hand and stood. I am coming, sweetheart. He went inside. Eleanor sat alone on the porch, heart still racing, knowing something had just shifted between them, something she was not ready to name. On the 10th day, a letter arrived. Old Jasper brought it when he came for the morning chores. Mail for you, Miss Eleanor. Came from Helena. Eleanor's stomach dropped. She recognized the handwriting. Mrs. Victoria Ashford. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Miss Hartwell, it has come to my attention that the brooch has been found. It was in my son Theodore's possession, exactly where you claimed it would be. I acknowledge that you were wrongly accused. Should you require a reference for future employment, I would be willing to provide one. Regards, Mrs. V. Ashford. Eleanor read it twice, 3 times, then she started to laugh. Not joy, not relief, just bitter vindication. 12 years of her life destroyed in a single night. And this was her apology. 6 sentences, no admission of guilt, no actual apology, just an acknowledgement. Cold, formal, distant. Willa found her in the kitchen, still holding the letter, still laughing, that hollow sound. Eleanor, what happened? Eleanor handed her the letter. Watch the girl's face as she read. Watch confusion shift to understanding, shift to outrage. She did not even apologize. Willa's voice was sharp with anger. She destroyed you, and she did not even apologize. It is more than I expected. But she... Eleanor took the letter back, folded it carefully. It does not matter what she says or does not say. What matters is that I know the truth. And now, so does she. Willa stared at her. How are you not angry? Oh, I am angry. I have been angry for months. Eleanor looked out the window, at the snow, at the mountains, at the life she was starting to build. But anger is like fire. It can keep you warm, or it can burn your house down. I have decided I have better things to do with my fuel. Willa was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. You sound like someone who has figured out how to live. I am learning, Eleanor said. We all are. That evening, after the girls were in bed, Eleanor stood at the kitchen window, washing the last of the dishes, watching the stars wheel overhead. Behind her, she heard footsteps, felt a presence in the doorway. You are still here, Thad said. Did you expect me to leave? Willa said you would be gone by Christmas. Willa does not know me yet. Neither do I. Eleanor turned, dried her hands on her apron. What do you want to know? He was quiet for a moment. The wind whispered through the bare trees. Somewhere in the barn, a horse nickered. Why did you never marry? He asked finally. Eleanor almost laughed. That is what you want to know. It is a start. She considered the question. The real answer was complicated. Too big, too heavy for an evening conversation, but she gave him part of it, part of the truth she had carried for years. It was not just about how I look, she said, though that did not help. It is that I never learned how to be small, how to need rescuing, how to make a man feel like he was necessary. Maybe you never met a man who did not need to feel necessary. Eleanor looked at him, really looked. Maybe not. They stood in silence as the last of the dishes dried, as the fire burned low, as the house settled into sleep around them. Eleanor Grace Thad said finally, "Yes, I am glad you are here." She did not know what to say to that, so she just nodded. And something inside her, some door that had been locked for years, cracked open just a little. The storm came back that night, worse than before. Eleanor lay in her bed listening to the wind scream around the house, feeling the walls shudder with each gust. She should have been afraid. This was the kind of storm that killed people, that buried houses, that erased roads and landmarks and hope. But she was not afraid. For the first time in years, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, more of Willa's suspicious stares. There would be setbacks and struggles and moments when Eleanor would wonder if she had made the right choice. But tonight she was warm. She was fed. She was wanted. And outside her door, 5 girls were sleeping safely in a house that finally felt like home. Eleanor closed her eyes and let the storm sing her to sleep. She did not know that morning would bring more trouble, that Blackwood's threats would escalate, that secrets buried for years were about to surface, that Willa's walls were about to crack, revealing a burden the girl had carried alone for far too long. All she knew was this moment, this peace, this impossible second chance, and she held on to it with both hands. The wagon arrived at dawn on the 14th day. Eleanor heard it before she saw it, the crunch of wheels through frozen snow, the whinny of horses that were not Thad's. She was already in the kitchen stoking the fire for breakfast when the sound reached her. She wiped her hands on her apron and moved to the window. 2 figures sat on the wagon seat. A man she did not recognize and a woman wrapped in black wool, her back straight as a Bible spine, her face hidden beneath a bonnet. But there was something in the way she held herself, something rigid, unyielding. That made Eleanor's chest tighten. She watched Thad emerge from the barn, watched him cross the yard with long strides, watched him stop at the wagon. His shoulders tightened. He removed his hat, put it back on. His hand curled into a fist at his side. The woman in black climbed down without assistance, her movements precise, practiced. Eleanor could not hear the words through the glass, but she could read Thad's body language, the way he stood very still, the way his jaw worked. This was not a welcome visitor. "Thaddeus," the woman's voice carried through the morning air. Cold, clipped. "Constance." Thad's voice was flat. "Did not expect you till spring. I received a letter." From Willa. Eleanor's heart stuttered. Willa had written to someone. About what? About her. The back door opened behind Eleanor. She turned to find Willa standing there, still in her nightgown, her face pale, her eyes wide. She had heard the wagon too. "She is here," Willa said. It was not a question. "Who is she?" "My mother's sister, Aunt Constance." Before Eleanor could respond, Thad's voice rang out across the yard. "Eleanor, come out here, please." The please was new. It made her nervous. Eleanor straightened her apron, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and walked out into the cold. Aunt Constance was already looking at her. The woman's eyes swept Eleanor from head to toe in a single practiced motion, taking in her size, her plain dress, her rough hands, her uncombed morning hair. The assessment lasted less than 3 seconds, but Eleanor felt stripped bare. "This is the woman," Constance's voice dripped with disbelief. "This is who you have brought into my sister's home." "This is Eleanor Grace Hartwell," Thad said. His voice was steady, but Eleanor heard the tension beneath. "She is helping with the house and the girls." "Helping?" Constance's lips curled. "Is that what we are calling it?" Eleanor stepped forward. "Ma'am, I do not believe we have been introduced. We have not." Constance's eyes were cold. "And I am not sure we need to be." She turned to Thad. "I will be staying through Christmas. We have matters to discuss, family matters." Her gaze flicked to Eleanor again, a look that made it very clear Eleanor was not family. Constance swept past them both toward the house. Her hired driver began unloading trunks. Thad stood very still, watching his sister-in-law disappear through the front door. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I did not know she was coming." "Willa wrote her." Eleanor kept her voice even. Thad turned sharply. "What?" "Just now, Willa told me. Constance said she received a letter from Willa." Something painful crossed Thad's face. He looked toward the house, toward the window where Willa's pale face had appeared, now empty. "I need to talk to my daughter." Eleanor caught his arm before he could move. "Not like this, not angry. I am not." He stopped, took a breath, let it out slow. "I am not angry at Willa. I am angry at Constance for putting her in the middle. Willa put herself there. Question is why." Thad met her eyes. The winter sky in them had turned to storm clouds. "Because she does not trust me. Because I could not keep her mother here. And she thinks I cannot keep anyone." Eleanor let go of his arm, then prove her wrong. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once and walked toward the house. Eleanor stayed in the yard, the cold biting through her dress, watching her breath form clouds in the morning air. 2 weeks of progress, 2 weeks of small victories and careful bridges. And now this. Breakfast was a battlefield. Constance sat at the table like a queen holding court. Her black dress immaculate, her hair pinned without a strand out of place. She had already rearranged the salt and pepper shakers, straightened the napkins, and commented twice on the dust in the corners. The girls sat in silence. Even Nell, who usually bubbled with chatter, kept her eyes on her plate. Eleanor could feel the tension thick as smoke in the air. She served the food without comment. Eggs, bacon, biscuits with honey, the same breakfast she had made every morning since she arrived. Constance took one bite of biscuit and set it down. Too much salt. Eleanor's hands stilled on the coffee pot. "I am sorry it is not to your taste, ma'am. My sister." Constance's voice was sharp. God rest her soul. Made the lightest biscuits in 3 counties. These are heavy. "Ruth was not much for baking," Thad said quietly from his place at the head of the table. "You know that, Constance. I know what my sister was capable of." Constance's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps better than you did." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Eleanor set the coffee pot down with more force than necessary. "Mr. Brennan, I will be starting on the laundry after breakfast. Girls, your rooms need tidying. Willa, I could use help with the mending if you have time." Willa's head snapped up. She glanced at Constance, then at Eleanor. Something unreadable passed across her face. "I will help," she said slowly. Constance's painted eyebrows rose. "Willa, I thought we might spend the morning together. I have brought you a new dress from Helena. I have chores. Chores can wait. Family cannot." Willa's hands curled into fists under the table. Eleanor saw it, even if Constance did not. Willa, Eleanor said gently, "Why do not you visit with your aunt this morning? The mending can wait till afternoon." Willa's eyes met Eleanor's. Something passed between them. Not quite gratitude, but close. "Fine," Willa said. After breakfast, Eleanor threw herself into work. Scrubbing floors, beating rugs, washing windows that had not been touched in months. Physical labor helped. It always had. When her hands were busy, her mind could rest. But she could not escape the sounds drifting from the parlor. Constance's voice low and insistent. Willa's responses growing shorter and shorter as the hours wore on. Around noon, Willa appeared in the kitchen. Her face was flushed, her eyes bright with suppressed tears. "She wants to take me back to Helena." Eleanor stopped scrubbing. "What, for the winter? To polish my education." Willa spat the words like poison. "She says this place is not fit for young ladies. Says Papa cannot raise us properly without a mother. What did you tell her?" "I told her I would rather freeze to death than live in Helena." Despite everything, Eleanor almost smiled. "That is a strong statement." "It is true." Willa sank into a chair, suddenly looking much younger than 16. "I hate her. I hate that she looks like Mama and sounds like Mama and makes me remember." She stopped. Her hands were shaking. Eleanor dried her hands on her apron and sat across from Willa. She did not reach out. Willa was not ready for that, but she sat close. "What do you remember?" Willa was quiet for a long moment. The fire popped and crackled. Outside, the wind moaned against the walls. "I remember her crying," Willa said finally. "Every night after Papa was asleep, I would hear her through the wall. She would cry for hours, and in the morning she would pretend everything was fine. Eleanor listened without interrupting. I remember the last winter she was here. Willa's voice cracked. Nell was 4, Iris was 6. Hazel had just stopped wetting the bed. Mama stopped eating, stopped talking. She would just sit by the window staring at nothing. Papa tried everything. Doctors, tonics, prayers. Nothing worked. And then she left. She left in the middle of the night. Willa's hands twisted in her lap, did not even wake us to say goodbye. I found her note in the morning. Eleanor's chest ached. What did it say? Willa's voice was fierce now. It said she was sorry, that she loved us, but she could not stay, that we would be better off without her. The words hung in the air like smoke. I burned it. Willa's eyes blazed. I burned it before Papa could see, before the girls could know. I let them think she just left, that she did not care enough to explain why. She stopped, swallowed hard, because it was easier for them to be angry at her than to know she was broken, and that I could not fix her. Eleanor reached out then, slowly, giving Willa time to pull away. When she did not, Eleanor took her hand. That was not your job, fixing your mother. You were 13 years old. I was the oldest. I should have. You were a child. Eleanor's voice was firm. You are still a child, and what happened to your mother was not your fault or your responsibility. Willa's tears finally fell. She did not sob, did not make a sound, just let the tears run down her cheeks in silent streams. She wrote me, Willa whispered. Last summer, a letter from San Francisco. Said she was getting better. Said she might come back someday. Eleanor went very still. Have you told your father no? Willa pulled her hand away, wiping her face with her sleeve. I cannot. I cannot give him hope, not again. It would break him. The kitchen door opened. Constance's voice sliced through the moment like a blade. Willa, dear, oh. She stopped, taking in the scene. Willa's tear-stained face. Eleanor's proximity. Her eyes narrowed. Am I interrupting something? No, ma'am. Eleanor stood. Willa was helping me with the mending. We were just taking a break. Constance looked at Willa, then at Eleanor. Something calculating entered her expression. I see. Willa, I need to speak with your father. Please join us in the parlor. I will be there in a moment. Constance hesitated, clearly wanting to say more, but she just nodded and swept out. Willa stood, wiping the last of her tears. She looked at Eleanor with something new in her eyes. Not trust yet, but the beginning of it. Thank you, she said, for listening anytime. Willa started toward the door, then paused. Eleanor, do not tell Papa about the letter, please. Eleanor's heart twisted. It was not her secret to keep or to tell. That is your decision, she said finally. But secrets have a way of coming out. Better it comes from you than from somewhere else. Willa nodded slowly. Then she was gone. The confrontation happened at dinner. Eleanor had outdone herself. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans she had canned back in Helena before everything fell apart. The table was set with the good china. Thad's mother's dishes that had not been used in years. None of it mattered. Constance waited until everyone was seated, until the girls had filled their plates, until Thad had said grace. Then she struck. Thaddeus, I have been thinking. Thad did not look up from his plate. That is dangerous. The girls need stability, structure, a proper education. They have a school 8 miles down the road, a one-room school or house. Constance's voice dripped contempt. Taught by a woman who barely finished 8th grade herself, Willa especially needs more. She is nearly a woman. She needs finishing, polish, society. Willa does not want to go to Helena, Thad said flatly. She made that clear. Willa is a child. Children do not always know what is best for them. Eleanor watched Willa's face go white, watched her fork freeze halfway to her mouth. Besides, Constance continued, it is not just about education, it is about this. She gestured at the table. At Eleanor, this arrangement, it is inappropriate. Inappropriate. Thad's voice was very quiet, very controlled, a single man living with an unmarried woman. Constance leaned forward. People will talk, Thaddeus. They already are. And you do not care about your daughter's reputations, about what society will think of them. My daughter's reputations are their own to build. Thad's voice was rising now. Not yours to protect. And what about Miss Hartwell's reputation? Constance's smile was sharp as a blade. A woman thrown out of her position in Helena for theft, living under your roof, caring for your children. If anyone were to learn the truth is that Eleanor was falsely accused. Thad's voice cut across her like a whip. The truth is she has been more help in 3 weeks than you have been in 3 years. The truth is that my girls are happier, healthier, better fed than they have been since. He stopped. The words hung in the air, unfinished but understood. Since Ruth left. Constance's face went pale, then flushed with anger. You dare compare me to... I am not comparing anyone to anyone. Thad pushed back from the table, his chair scraping loud against the floor. I am telling you what I see. Eleanor stays. The girls stay. And if you cannot accept that, maybe you should be the one leaving. The silence was absolute. Nell had started to cry, soft whimpers she was trying to hide behind her napkin. Iris had her arm around her. Hazel's jaw was set, her eyes blazing. Addie stared at her plate like she wished she could disappear into it. And Willa was looking at her father with an expression Eleanor could not read. Hope, fear, some mixture of both. Constance stood slowly, with dignity. I came here out of love for my sister's children, out of duty to her memory, but I see I am not wanted. Constance, you have made your choice, Thaddeus. She looked at Eleanor, her eyes full of venom. You have chosen a stranger over family. I hope she is worth it. She swept from the room, her footsteps sharp on the wooden floor. The front door slammed moments later. Papa. Nell's voice was small and scared. Is Aunt Constance going away? Thad rubbed his face with both hands. He looked exhausted, defeated. Yes, sweetheart, I think she is. Because of Miss Eleanor. The question came from Hazel. No. Thad looked at Eleanor then, and something in his expression made her heart stumble. Because of me. Because I made a choice about what kind of family we are going to be. He held Eleanor's gaze, and I do not regret it. After the girls were in bed, Eleanor found Thad on the porch. The night was clear and cold. The stars scattered across the sky like spilled sugar. Their breath made clouds in the frigid air. You did not have to do that, Eleanor said. Yes, I did. She is the girls' aunt, their mother's sister. She has a right. She has a right to visit, to love them, to be part of their lives. Thad's voice was hard. She does not have a right to tear apart what I have spent 3 years trying to build. Eleanor leaned against the porch rail. The cold bit through her shawl, but she did not move. Willa rode her. That is what started this. I know. Thad was quiet for a moment. She is scared. Scared that everyone she cares about will leave. I know that too. Did she tell you about Ruth's letter? Eleanor went very still. You know about that? Willa is not as good at hiding things as she thinks. I found it in her drawer when I was putting away laundry last month. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. My wife writes to my daughter and I find out by accident. What did it say? That she is getting better? That she might come back? That she is sorry? Thad's voice cracked on the last word. 3 years of silence, and that is what she sends. Eleanor did not know what to say, so she said nothing. Just stood beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Do you want her to come back? She asked finally. Thad was quiet for a long time, long enough that Eleanor thought he might not answer. I used to, he said. For the first year I prayed for it. Every night I would wake up and check the porch, thinking maybe she had come home while I was sleeping. I would hear a wagon on the road and my heart would stop, hoping it was her. He turned to look at Eleanor. His eyes were bright with unshed tears. But now, I do not know. I do not know if I can forgive her. I do not know if I want to. He swallowed hard. Is that terrible? Does that make me a bad person? It makes you human. I thought I loved her, Thad continued, his voice barely above a whisper. But maybe I just loved the idea of her. The dream of a perfect family in a perfect house on a perfect piece of land. He laughed again. That same hollow sound. Turns out reality is a lot messier. Eleanor thought about her own lost dreams, the family she had never had, the children she had never born, the love she had stopped hoping for somewhere around her 30th birthday. Reality is always messier, she said. But sometimes messy is good. Sometimes messy is real. Thad turned to face her fully. In the starlight, his face was all angles and shadows. Eleanor Grace Hartwell, he said slowly. Who are you? I am nobody special. Just a woman who walked 17 miles through a blizzard. That is not nothing. It was survival. Nothing more, Boam. He reached out and touched her face. His hand was rough, calloused, warm against her cold cheek. I do not believe that, he said, and I do not think you do either. Eleanor's heart was pounding. She should step back, should remember her place, should remember that she was the help. Nothing more. But she did not move. Thad, his name was all she could manage. After this is over, he said, after Blackwood is dealt with, I'm going to ask you something, something important. And I want to do it right when there is no danger hanging over us. When I can offer you something besides worry and fear. You do not have to wait. Yes, I do. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. You deserve that much. Deserve a proper asking, not in the middle of a crisis. Eleanor wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she did not need proper, did not need perfect, just needed him. But she saw the determination in his eyes, the hope mixed with fear, and she understood. All right, she said, after. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles once, briefly, but it was enough. The horses went down on the 16th day. Eleanor was gathering eggs when she heard old Jasper shout, Thad, horses down. She dropped the basket, eggs rolling across the frozen ground, and ran. The barn was chaos, 2 horses thrashing on the floor, the bay mare and the old draft horse. Foam flecked their mouths. Their eyes rolled white with pain. Old Jasper stood in the center aisle, his weathered face tight with worry. Started about 20 minutes ago, old Jasper said, as Thad pushed past him. They was fine at the evening feeding, then this. Thad dropped to his knees beside the mare. His hands moved over her belly, her legs, checking for injury. What did they eat? Same as always. Oats from the new barrel, hay from the loft. Thad's head snapped up. The new barrel. When did that come in? 2 days ago. Old Jasper's voice cracked. Blackwood's man brought it over. Said Blackwood wanted to make peace. Settled the dispute about the water rights. You accepted a gift from Blackwood. I did not know it was poison. I thought maybe things was finally calming down between you two. Eleanor was already moving toward the feed room. She found the barrel in the corner, half empty now, scooped a handful of oats into her palm. Even in the dim light, she could see it. A grayish powder coating the grain, barely visible unless you were looking for it. Thad. Her voice cut through the barn. Come look at this. He was beside her in seconds. She showed him the oats, watched his expression shift from confusion to recognition to cold, hard fury. Arsenic, he said. That son of a... How much did they eat? Enough? Old Jasper's voice was hollow. Maybe too much. They worked through the night. Eleanor boiled water and mixed charcoal paste while Thad forced it down the horses' throats. Old Jasper kept the other animals calm, moving them to the far paddock away from the tainted feed. By dawn, the draft horse was dead. The mare survived, but barely. She lay on her side, breathing in shallow gasps, her once glossy coat dull with sweat. Thad sat beside her, his back against the stall door, his hands covered in blood and foam and defeat. He had not spoken in hours. Eleanor brought him coffee, sat beside him in the straw. This is not over, she said quietly. I know. Blackwood will try again. I know that too. Thad turned to look at her. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. But beneath the exhaustion was something else, something dangerous. I cannot prove anything. Cannot go to the sheriff. Blackwood owns him. Cannot fight back without risking the girls. So you just let him win. I did not say that. He looked down at his hands, at the blood-dried black under his fingernails. I cannot protect them from him. Can barely keep them fed. And now he is poisoning us out or burning us out. And I cannot. His voice broke. I cannot lose anyone else. Eleanor put her hand on his. You are not alone in this. You have old Jasper. You have the girls. You have me, say. For how long everyone leaves eventually. I am not everyone. Thad reached out, touched her face with one bloody hand. Eleanor Grace Hartwell, after this is over, after Blackwood is dealt with, I am going to ask you something, and I want you to know, whatever happens, however this ends, you have already given me more than I had any right to ask for. You do not have to wait, Eleanor said again, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, I do. You deserve that much. The next 3 days passed in a strange suspended tension. Constance had left on day 15. Willa was quieter than usual. The other girls sensed something coming, but did not know what. Eleanor went about her work, cooking, cleaning, mending, but her mind was always half somewhere else, waiting for the next disaster, the next attack. It came on the 19th night, past midnight. Eleanor was already in bed but not asleep. She heard the sound of hoofbeats, fast, desperate. Then a man's voice calling out, "Easy, Brennan, it's me, Sheriff Coleman." Eleanor was out of bed before she knew she was moving, pulling a shawl around her shoulders, racing down the stairs. Thad was already at the door, rifle in hand, his hair mussed from sleep. Behind him Willa appeared, then Eleanor. Sheriff Coleman dismounted slowly. His face was grim in the moonlight. He held his hat against his chest like a man at a funeral. "Got some news you need to hear," he said. "About your wife." Thad's blood went cold. Eleanor could see it in the way his shoulders stiffened, in the way his knuckles went white on the rifle. "What about her? I'm sorry, Thad. There is no easy way to say this." The sheriff took a breath. "Ruth's dead, drowned in San Francisco Bay 3 weeks ago. Letter from the San Francisco sheriff just came today." The world stopped. Eleanor watched Thad's face go blank, watched Willa crumple like a puppet whose strings had been cut, watched the sheriff shuffle his feet in the snow, uncomfortable with the grief he had delivered. "I'm sorry," Sheriff Coleman said again. "I truly am." Thad nodded once, mechanically. "Thank you for telling me. If there is anything I can do, we will manage." The sheriff mounted his horse and disappeared back into the darkness, leaving them alone with the news that changed everything. Willa was on her knees in the snow, sobbing. Thad stood frozen, staring at nothing. Eleanor did the only thing she could. She knelt beside Willa, wrapped her arms around the shaking girl, and held her while she cried. After a long time, Thad finally moved. He walked over to where Eleanor held his daughter, and he knelt beside them both. "She is gone," Willa whispered. "She is really gone. I know, baby. I know." Willa looked up at her father, tears streaming down her face. "I wanted to hate her. It was easier when I could hate her, I know. What do we do now?" Thad met Eleanor's eyes over his daughter's head. In his gaze, she saw something broken, something lost, but also something else, something like hope. "We go inside," he said quietly. "We wake your sisters, and we face this together." He stood, helping Willa to her feet. Then he offered his hand to Eleanor. She took it. Together, the three of them walked back into the house. They gathered in the parlor, all of them. Nell sat in Eleanor's lap, though Eleanor had not invited her there. The child had simply climbed up and nestled against her chest like a small animal seeking warmth. Iris sat rigid on the settee, her face carefully blank. Hazel curled into the corner of the couch, knees drawn to her chest. Addie had her sketchbook open, her pencil moving in nervous patterns across the page. Willa stood beside her father, shoulder to shoulder. Thad cleared his throat, then cleared it again. "I have something to tell you," he said, "about your mother." Iris's mask slipped for just a moment. "She's coming back." The hope in her voice was a knife to Eleanor's heart. "No, sweetheart." Thad's voice was gentle but firm. "She is not coming back. She passed away 3 weeks ago in San Francisco." Silence, then Nell's small voice. "What does passed away mean?" Eleanor's arms tightened around the child. "It means she died, honey. She's gone to heaven. Like Grandma." "Yes, like Grandma." Nell was quiet for a moment, processing. "Then will she be an angel? Grandma's an angel. She told me so in a dream." Eleanor whispered, "I am sure she will be. The prettiest angel." Iris had not moved, had not blinked. "How did she die?" Thad hesitated. Willa stepped forward. "There was an accident," Willa said. "In the water. It was quick. She did not suffer. It was a lie, or at least a version of the truth softened for young ears." Eleanor did not know the details, did not want to know. What mattered was how these girls would carry this moment for the rest of their lives. Hazel finally spoke. her voice sharp as broken glass. She left us. 3 years ago, she walked out and never looked back. Why should we care that she's dead, Hazel? Thad started. No, Hazel was on her feet now, fists clenched. She did not care about us, did not write, did not visit, did not send so much as a birthday card. And now we are supposed to cry for her. We are supposed to be sad. You are allowed to feel whatever you feel. Eleanor said quietly, anger, sadness, relief, all of it. None of it makes you a bad person. Hazel turned on her. What do you know about it? She was not your mother. No, Eleanor met the girl's blazing eyes. But I know what it is like to lose someone who is supposed to love you. And I know that anger is easier than grief. She paused. But easier is not better. And it will not make the hurt go away. Hazel's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like she might scream, might throw something, might run. Instead, she collapsed. Eleanor caught her before she hit the floor, holding her, absorbing the sobs that tore from the girl's throat like something wounded trying to escape. I hate her, Hazel cried. I hate her so much. I know, baby. I know. Why did she leave? Why did not she love us enough to stay? Eleanor rocked her gently, the way she had rocked 100 children who were not her own. She was sick, Hazel, in her mind, in her heart. She was not strong enough to fight it. But we needed her. You did. And I am so sorry she could not be what you needed. Eleanor pulled back, cupped Hazel's face in her hands. But that is not your fault. It was never your fault. Hazel's tears kept falling. But something in her eyes shifted, a crack in the armor, a tiny space where healing might eventually begin. The rest of the morning was a blur of tears and questions and long silences. Addie did not speak at all, just drew page after page of the same image. A woman standing at a window, her face turned away. Eleanor did not comment, just made sure Addie's pencil stayed sharp and her paper supply stayed full. Iris retreated into caretaking, making tea no one drank, straightening cushions no one sat on, organizing things that did not need organizing. Eleanor recognized the behavior. It was the same thing she had done for 12 years in the Ashford house, keeping busy to keep from breaking. Willa surprised everyone. She sat with each of her sisters one by one, held Nell's hand while explaining heaven in terms a 7-year-old could understand, listened to Hazel rage and did not try to fix it, drew beside Addie in comfortable silence, helped Iris straighten the parlor, both of them finding peace in the shared routine. When Eleanor passed by the hallway, she caught Willa watching her. The girl's expression was unreadable, but when their eyes met, Willa nodded once. Thank you, that nod said. Eleanor nodded back. Evening came. The house settled into an exhausted quiet. The girls had finally gone to bed. Eleanor stood at the kitchen window, washing the last of the dishes, watching the stars wheel overhead. Behind her, she heard footsteps, felt a presence in the doorway. She turned. Thad stood there, looking like he had aged 10 years in a single day, dark circles under his eyes, his beard unkempt, his shirt buttoned wrong. You should eat something, Eleanor said. Not hungry. The girls need you. The girls have you. He moved into the kitchen, sat at the table, put his head in his hands. I thought I had more time, he said, his voice muffled, to make peace with what she did, to find a way to forgive her, or at least understand. And now she is gone and I will never get that chance. Eleanor dried her hands, sat beside him. Some questions do not have answers, she said quietly. Some pain does not have a reason. You can spend your whole life looking for someone to blame, or you can spend it building something better. Thad looked at her, really looked. And for the first time since the sheriff came, she saw something in his eyes besides grief. After this is over, he said, after Blackwood is dealt with, after the girls have had time to heal, I am going to ask you something, Eleanor Grace, and I hope you will say yes. Eleanor's breath caught. You do not have to wait. Yes, I do. His hand found hers across the table. You deserve that much. Deserve a proper asking when I can offer you more than grief and danger. All right, Eleanor said. But in her heart, she knew the answer was already yes, had been yes from the moment he lifted her out of the snow, from the moment he looked at her and saw not her size or her plainness, but her strength, her stubborn refusal to give up. Yes, she thought. 1,000 times yes. Outside, the night was still, the stars bright in the clear sky, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, lonely, wild, calling for something it had lost. Eleanor understood that call, had been answering it her whole life, searching for a place to belong, a family to claim her, a home worth fighting for. She thought perhaps she had finally found it, here in this broken house with this broken man and his 5 broken daughters, all of them learning slowly to mend, all of them learning that home was not a place you found. It was a place you built, with your own 2 hands, your own stubborn heart, out of the ashes of everything you had lost. And once you built it, nothing could take it away. Not Blackwood with his poison and his threats, not Constance with her judgment and her demands, not even death itself. Home was here, now, in this moment, and Eleanor was going to fight like hell to keep it. The days after the sheriff's news passed in a strange fog. The house moved around Eleanor like a dream, like something not quite real. The girls processed their grief in different ways, each one finding her own path through the darkness. Addie did not speak, not a word. She just drew, page after page, always the same image, a woman at a window, her face turned away, her hair loose, one hand pressed against the glass. Eleanor did not comment, just kept Addie's pencil sharp, kept her paper supply full, and waited for the day when the girl would be ready to speak again. Iris threw herself into caretaking with a vengeance. She made tea that no one drank, straightened cushions that no one sat on, organized the pantry 3 times in 2 days. Eleanor recognized the pattern, had lived it herself for 12 years in the Ashford house, working to keep the pain at bay, working to feel useful when everything else felt broken. She found Iris scrubbing the kitchen floor at midnight on day 21. The floor was already spotless. Had been spotless for hours. You do not have to fix everything, sweetheart. Iris's hand stilled on the brush. Someone has to. That someone is not you anymore. Eleanor knelt beside her. Your job is to be 11 years old, to play, to learn, to let the grown-ups handle the grown-up problems. But what if there are not any grown-ups left? The question hung in the air, raw, honest, terrified. Eleanor took the brush from Iris's hands. I am here. Your father is here. We are not going anywhere. Promise, promise. Iris threw her arms around Eleanor's neck and held on, and Eleanor held her back, feeling the girl's shoulders shake with silent sobs, feeling the weight of a burden finally set down. Hazel's grief came in waves. One moment she would be fine, cooking beside Eleanor, humming while she stirred. The next moment she would drop the spoon and run outside. Eleanor would find her later in the barn, curled up in the hay, her face buried in her knees. Eleanor never said anything, just sat beside her, close enough to touch but not touching, giving Hazel space to feel what she needed to feel, to cry when she needed to cry, to rage when she needed to rage. On day 23, Hazel finally spoke. I do not know how to miss her. She was gone for so long already. But now that she's really gone, now that there's no chance she'll ever come back, I do not know what to do with that. You do not have to know right now. Eleanor's voice was quiet. Grief is not a problem to solve. It is just something to carry. And some days it will be heavier than others, but you do not have to carry it alone. Hazel looked at her, really looked. Will you help me carry it? Yeah. Promise, promise. Nell asked questions, endless questions. Where did Mama go? What does heaven look like? Will she be able to see us from there? Does she know we miss her? Will she miss us back? Eleanor answered every question, sometimes truthfully, sometimes with gentle lies that made the truth easier to bear. And when she did not know the answer, she said so. I do not know, sweetheart, but I hope so. I really hope so. Willa surprised them all. She became a pillar, a rock. She sat with each sister in turn, held hands, wiped tears, told stories about their mother from before, from when Ruth had still been herself, before the darkness took her. Eleanor watched Willa transform from the angry, suspicious girl who had glared at her that first night to something else, something stronger, more certain, a young woman stepping into her own power. One evening on day 24, Willa found Eleanor on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the mountains gold and pink. They stood together in silence, watching the light fade. Thank you, Willa said finally. For what? For staying, for not leaving when things got hard, for showing us that people can be counted on. I have not done anything special. Yes, you have. Willa's voice was firm. You have done something Mama could not do. You chose us. Every single day. You wake up and you choose to be here, to take care of us, to make us a family again. She turned to look at Eleanor. Her eyes were bright with tears, but also with something else. Something like joy. You are the mother we needed, not the one we got, but the one we needed. Eleanor's throat was too tight to speak, so she just pulled Willa into her arms and held her and let her own tears fall into the girl's hair. Thad disappeared. For 3 days, he worked from dawn until long past dark, fixing fences that did not need fixing, mucking stalls that had already been mucked, chopping enough wood to last 3 winters, working his body until it could not work anymore, until exhaustion claimed him and he could sleep without dreaming. On the afternoon of day 25, Eleanor found him in the barn. He was repairing a harness that did not need repair. His hands moved mechanically. His eyes looked at nothing. You should eat something. Not hungry. The girls need you. The girls have you. His hands finally stilled. He looked at her, and Eleanor saw the grief carved into his face like words into stone. She was beautiful, Eleanor. God, she was beautiful. Like something out of a painting. I thought if I loved her enough, if I gave her enough, she would be happy here. With me. With them. Eleanor sat beside him in the straw, close enough that their shoulders touched. Some people cannot be happy, she said quietly. No matter how much love you give them, the sickness gets in the way. And it is not anyone's fault. Not yours. Not theirs. It just is. I thought I could save her. You tried. That is all anyone can do. Thad turned to look at her. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. But beneath the exhaustion was something else. Something Eleanor had not seen before. Something that looked almost like peace. I do not know if I can forgive her, he said. For leaving, for giving up, for choosing death over us. He swallowed hard. Is that terrible? Does that make me a bad person? It makes you human. I thought I loved her. But maybe I just loved the idea of her. The dream of a perfect family and a perfect house on a perfect piece of land. He laughed. But there was no humor in it. Turns out reality is a lot messier. Eleanor thought about her own lost dreams. The family she had never had, the children she had never born, the love she had stopped hoping for. Reality is always messier, she said, but sometimes messy is good. Sometimes messy is real. Thad was quiet for a long time. Then he reached out, touched her face, his hand rough and warm. Eleanor Grace Hartwell. Who are you? I am nobody special. That is not true, and I do not think you believe it either. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. After this is over, after Blackwood is dealt with, I am going to ask you something, and I want you to know, whatever your answer is. You have already given me more than I had any right to ask for. You do not have to wait. Yes, I do. You deserve that much. Eleanor wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that she did not need pretty words or perfect timing, that she would take him as he was, broken and grieving and still trying to hold everything together. But she saw the determination in his eyes, the need to do this right, and she understood. All right, she said. He lifted her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles, and for a moment the world was just the two of them, just this moment, just this promise. Then the moment passed, and they went back to work, back to the business of living, back to the so hard process of healing. But Eleanor carried that moment with her, held it close like a candle in the dark, a promise of something better, something worth fighting for. The attack came on day 28, 3 nights after the sheriff's visit. Eleanor woke to the smell of smoke. She was out of bed before she was fully conscious, her feet hitting the cold floor, her hands reaching for her shawl. The smell was stronger now. Grid, bitter, unmistakable. Fire. She ran to the window and her heart stopped. The barn was ablaze, flames shooting from the roof like angry fingers reaching for the sky, smoke billowing into the night, thick and black and poisonous. Eleanor ran, down the stairs, through the kitchen. She could hear Thad's voice shouting orders, could hear old Jasper yelling, could hear the horses screaming. Get the girls. Thad's voice cut through the chaos. Get them to the cellar. Now Eleanor turned. Willa was already herding her sisters toward the stairs. Hazel had Iris by the hand. Addie carried Nell, who was crying, her face pressed against her sister's shoulder. This way, through the kitchen. The cellar doors in the pantry, they moved as one. 6 bodies flowing through the dark house, guided by memory and desperation. Eleanor brought up the rear, checking behind, making sure no one was left. Willa hesitated at the cellar door. What about Papa? Your father can take care of himself. You need to take care of your sisters. Willa's jaw tightened, but she nodded. She led the way down into the darkness, the other girls following like ducklings. Nell went last, starting to descend. Then Eleanor stopped. She could not do it, could not hide in a cellar while Thad faced whatever was happening out there. Could not let him fight alone. Could not. A hand grabbed her arm. Going somewhere. The voice was unfamiliar. The grip was iron. Eleanor spun, but the man was faster. He caught her other arm, pinned her against the pantry shelves. She could see his face now, rough, scarred, with eyes that held no mercy. Blackwood's been looking for you, said you are the reason Brennan's been so stubborn. Take you out and he will fold. Eleanor's mind raced. The girls were in the cellar. If she screamed, he might find them. If she stayed quiet. She did not get to finish the thought. Willa exploded from the cellar stairs. The girl moved like lightning, a kitchen knife in her hand, her face twisted with fury. She slammed into the man from behind, knocked him off balance, drove the knife into his shoulder. The man screamed, released Eleanor. Run! Willa shouted. Get Papa. Eleanor ran. Outside was chaos. The barn was fully engulfed now, flames reaching toward the sky like the end of the world. She could see figures moving in the firelight. Thad struggling with 2 men near the well, old Jasper swinging a shovel at a third, and standing apart, watching like a king surveying his conquest, was a man Eleanor had never seen but instantly knew. Silas Blackwood. Eleanor did not think, did not plan. She picked up a rock from the garden border and threw it with all her strength. It caught Blackwood on the temple. He staggered, his hand flying to his head, blood running between his fingers. You. His voice was pure venom. He started toward her, drawing a pistol from his belt. You stupid interfering. But Eleanor was already moving. She grabbed the cast iron skillet from where it hung by the outdoor cooking area. Blackwood raised his pistol. Eleanor swung with everything she had. Mr. Blackwood, her voice was steady despite her pounding heart. I have spent 38 years being told I am too much. The skillet connected with his gun hand. The pistol flew away into the snow. Too big, too stubborn, too difficult. Another swing. This one caught his arm. You know what I learned? Blackwood stumbled backward, trying to draw a second pistol. Eleanor's next swing caught him square in the jaw. Sometimes too much is exactly enough. Blackwood went down hard, face first into the snow. For a moment there was silence. Everyone frozen, staring at the woman with the skillet standing over Silas Blackwood's unconscious body. Then a voice rang out from the darkness. Stay down, Blackwood. A woman stepped into the firelight, rifle raised, badge glinting on her chest. Marshal Kate Hollis, Silas Blackwood. You are under arrest for arson, attempted murder, cattle theft, assault, poisoning, and about a dozen other charges I will enjoy listing for you later. Blackwood's men froze. The fight drained out of them as more figures emerged from the shadows. Deputies, at least half a dozen of them. It was over. Eleanor's legs gave out. She sat down hard in the snow, the skillet still clutched in her hands, her whole body shaking. Then Thad was there, pulling her to her feet, pulling her into his arms, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Eleanor, just her name. But the way he said it, like a prayer, like a benediction, like the answer to a question he had been asking his whole life. The girls are safe in the cellar. Willa, Eleanor started to laugh. It came out half sob. Willa stabbed one of Blackwood's men. She is fiercer than all of us. Thad's arms tightened around her, I thought. When I saw you were not with them. I thought, I am here. Eleanor pulled back just enough to see his face. I am right here. Around them, the deputies were rounding up Blackwood's men. The marshal was reading rights, her voice calm and professional despite the chaos. Old Jasper was already organizing a bucket line to save what remained of the barn. But for this moment, there was only Eleanor and Thad, holding each other in the firelight, alive against all odds. Thad, his name was all she could manage. I said I wanted to wait, he said, his voice rough with smoke and emotion, to do this properly, but I cannot wait anymore. Not one more second. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away soot and tears she had not known she was crying. I love you. I have loved you since you walked into that kitchen and made the best damn biscuits I have ever tasted. I loved you when you stood up to Constance, when you held my girls while they cried, when you refused to run even when running would have been smart. He took a breath. I know I am not much, a widower with 5 daughters and a ranch that is half burned down. I know you could do better. But I am asking anyway, Eleanor Grace Hartwell, will you stay? Not as a housekeeper, not as hired help, as family, as, he swallowed hard, as my wife, if you will have me. Eleanor looked at this man, this stubborn, proud, broken, beautiful man, who had pulled her out of a snowdrift and given her a home, who had seen past her size and her plainness to the strength underneath, who had given her a family when she thought she would die alone. Yes, she said. The word came out small, barely audible over the crackle of flames and the shouts of men. Yes, she said again, louder this time. Yes, Thaddeus Brennan, 1,000 times yes. His face transformed. The exhaustion, the fear, the pain, all of it fell away, replaced by joy so pure it took her breath. He kissed her, not gently, not carefully. He kissed her like a man who had almost lost everything and found it again. Like a man who had been alone for too long and finally was not anymore. Someone wolf whistled. Old Jasper, probably. Eleanor did not care. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she belonged. They found the girls still in the cellar, huddled together in the dark. When Eleanor opened the door, Nell launched herself upward, her arms wrapping around Eleanor's neck. I was so scared. There was shouting and fire, and Willa had a knife. It is over, sweetheart, all over. Willa emerged last, her hands still shaking, the knife still clutched in her fist. She looked at Eleanor, then at Thad, then back at Eleanor. You came back. You could have run, but you came back. Of course I did. Willa's face crumpled. For the first time since Eleanor had known her, the girl looked exactly her age. 16, terrified, desperate for someone to tell her everything would be okay. Eleanor held out her arm. Willa stepped into the embrace. We are family, Eleanor said. Family does not run. Dawn broke gray and cold over Brennan Ranch on day 29. The barn was gone, nothing but smoking timbers and ash. But the house still stood. The animals had been saved. Huddled in the far paddock, and 6 figures sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, watching the sunrise. Thad's arm was around Eleanor's shoulders. Nell was curled in Eleanor's lap. Willa sat on Thad's other side. Hazel and Iris bracketed her. Addie was sketching again. The sunrise this time, all gold and pink and promise. She was adding color now, mixing her own paints from berries and bark she had collected. What happens now? Iris asked. Thad looked at Eleanor. Eleanor looked back. Now we rebuild. The rebuilding started that very morning. Eleanor woke to the sound of hammers on day 30. She pulled herself from bed, every muscle aching from the night before, and looked out the window. The yard was full of people. Wagons lined the road. Men she had never seen carried lumber toward where the barn used to stand. Women gathered near the house, their arms full of food and blankets and supplies. Children ran between the adults, their laughter cutting through the cold morning air. Tom Morrison, the blacksmith, approached the porch, his hat in his hand. Brennan, we heard what happened. Blackwood's been a plague on this valley for too long. Time we did something about it. Thad swallowed hard. Tom, I cannot ask. You ain't asking. We are offering. He looked at Eleanor, nodded once. Ma'am, we brought enough supplies to build you a new barn, better than the old one. Going to take a few days, but we will get it done. The days that followed were the hardest Eleanor had ever worked. She cooked for dozens, made coffee by the gallon, tended cuts and bruises and blistered hands. Organize the women who came to help, assigning tasks, managing supplies, keeping the whole operation from descending into chaos. The girls worked alongside her. Willa became her right hand, anticipating needs before Eleanor voiced them, moving through the crowds with quiet efficiency. Hazel took charge of the younger children, organizing games and activities to keep them out from underfoot. Iris created systems for everything: dish rotation, supply inventory, meal scheduling. Addie documented it all, her sketchbook filling with images of the rebuilding. She continued mixing paints, creating colorful records of the community coming together. And Nell made friends with everyone, charmed the workers with her endless questions, brought water to thirsty men. By the end of the first day, half the valley knew her by name. On the third night, when most of the volunteers had gone home to their own families, Thad found Eleanor by the chicken coop. She was collecting eggs. Her movements automatic after weeks of practice. You have not stopped moving in 3 days. Neither have you. I am not the one who cooked for 40 people and still found time to teach Hazel how to make pie crust. Eleanor smiled despite her exhaustion. The pie crust was important. She was stressed. Thad came closer, took the egg basket from her hands. Eleanor, look at me. She looked. He was tired. They all were. But beneath the exhaustion was something else. A lightness she had not seen in him before. Like a weight had been lifted. Like he could finally breathe. I have not thanked you properly for what happened, for staying, for fighting. He stopped, shook his head. I asked you to marry me in the middle of a burning ranch. That was not right, Eleanor's heart stuttered. Are you taking it back? God, no. He set down the basket and took her hands in his. I am asking again. Properly this time. Not because I am scared or desperate or half out of my mind. Because I love you. Because my girls love you. Because this place. He looked around at the half-built barn, the freshly painted fence, the house that had survived fire and fear and everything Blackwood had thrown at it. This place is better with you in it. I am better with you in it. Eleanor felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She did not try to stop them. I already said yes. Say it again. Yes, she laughed, a wet, joyful sound. Yes, Thaddeus Brennan, 1,000 times yes. He kissed her then, gentle and sure, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious, something worth fighting for. When they finally pulled apart, Eleanor rested her forehead against his. We should probably tell the girls. Thad smiled. I think they already know. Eleanor turned. 5 faces peered through the window of the house, eyes wide, mouths pressed against the glass. Willa was trying to look dignified and failing. Hazel was bouncing on her heels. Iris had her hands clasped under her chin. Addie was sketching furiously. And Nell burst through the door. Are you going to be our mama now? For real and forever? Eleanor knelt to catch her. Would you like that more than anything in the whole entire world? The other girls followed, more slowly, but their faces told the same story. Hope, relief, joy. Willa reached them last. She looked at Eleanor with those sharp eyes, and for a moment Eleanor braced herself for resistance. Instead, Willa hugged her. Thank you for not leaving. Eleanor held her tight. I never will. The wedding was held on the first day of spring, 47 days after Eleanor had walked through the snow. Not a fancy affair. There was not time or money for that. Just family and neighbors gathered in the yard. The new barn rising behind them like a promise. The mountains watching from a distance. Reverend Whitfield performed the ceremony. Eleanor wore a dress she had sewn herself, simple blue cotton with lace at the collar. The girls had picked wildflowers from the meadow, weaving them into her hair. Thad wore his best shirt, the one Eleanor had mended 3 times already, and a smile that had not left his face in weeks. The vows were traditional. The kiss was not. When Thad dipped Eleanor backward, earning whoops and whistles from the assembled crowd, Nell shouted, "Do it again, do it again." They did. The celebration lasted until sunset. Martha Hensley had organized the food potluck style, everyone bringing what they could. Old Jasper played his fiddle. Children danced in the grass. Adults shared stories and laughter in the particular joy that comes from surviving something terrible and coming out stronger. At some point, Eleanor found herself standing at the edge of it all, watching. She thought about the woman she had been 47 days ago, dying in a snowdrift, carrying a carpet bag full of shame, believing she was too much, too big, too broken to ever belong anywhere. That woman felt like a stranger now. Willa appeared beside her. "You look happy." "I am happy." "Good." Willa was quiet for a moment. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For being horrible when you first came. For writing to Aunt Constance. For trying to push you away. You were protecting yourself. I was being a coward. You were being 16. "There is a difference." Willa's mouth twitched. "Eleanor?" "Yes, I am glad it was you. That Papa found. That we found." She looked away, her voice dropping. "Mama could not be what we needed. But you chose us. That means more." Eleanor pulled her into an embrace. "I will always choose you, all of you, no matter what." 1 week after the wedding, a letter arrived from Helena, Mrs. Victoria Ashford. Not just acknowledgement this time. A full apology, stiff and formal, but real. "Miss Hartwell, Mrs. Brennan, I should say now, Theodore has confessed his crimes to me fully. He has been sent abroad to spare the family further embarrassment. I find myself in the uncomfortable position of owing you more than an acknowledgement. Enclosed, please find a sum I hope will begin to make amends for the wrong done to you in this house. I do not expect forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I have learned perhaps too late that cruelty has consequences I never anticipated. I wish you well in your new life. Mrs. Victoria Ashford." Inside the envelope was a check. Eleanor counted the zeros 3 times before believing it. Thad looked up from the letter, his eyes wide. This is enough to secure the ranch for years. Enough for Willa's college. Enough for... His voice broke. Enough for everything. Eleanor shook her head. "It means we are safe. It means you won. I did not win anything. I survived. I found you. That is not winning. That is luck." Thad turned her face toward his. "Eleanor Grace Brennan, you did not win anything. You earned every bit of this life. You fought for it. You built it." His voice dropped. "I am the one who should be thanking you. For saving us. All of us." Summer came in a blaze of heat and color. The new barn was finished. Bigger than the old one, with a loft and a proper tack room and space for twice as many horses. The garden flourished under Eleanor's care. Rows of vegetables and flowers that had not grown on Brennan land in years. The girls flourished too. Willa started corresponding with a women's college in the East. Eleanor helped her write the application letters, edited her essays, encouraged her dreams of becoming a teacher. Hazel's cooking had improved to the point where she sometimes took over dinner entirely. She had also started singing again. Not just humming, but real singing. Her voice filling the house with melodies that made Nell dance and Iris smile. Iris had relaxed into childhood at last. She played with Nell in the meadow, built forts in the loft, let herself be young in ways she had forgotten were possible. Addie's art had gained recognition. The new school teacher, Miss Warren, had shown her work to a visiting artist from Denver, who had pronounced her talented beyond her years. There was talk of apprenticeship, of formal training, of a future beyond the ranch. And Nell remained Nell, bright and boundless, and beloved by everyone who met her. One evening in late August, Eleanor sat on the porch with Thad, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. They had done this almost every night since the wedding. These quiet moments, just the two of them, before the chaos of bedtime and the demands of tomorrow. "I got a letter today," Eleanor said. "From who, Mrs. Ashford?" Thad's expression darkened. What does she want now? Eleanor handed him the letter. She had already read it twice, still not quite believing. She wants to set up a trust for the girls' education, all 5 of them. Full tuition, room and board, for as long as they want to study. Thad stared at the letter, then at Eleanor, then back at the letter. Why guilt, maybe? Or maybe she finally learned what it means to be decent. Eleanor leaned against him. Either way, it means the girls will have choices, opportunities, futures we could not have given them on our own. We would have found a way. I know. But now we do not have to. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the last of the light fade from the sky, watching stars begin to appear, one by one like promises being kept. "Eleanor Grace Brennan," Thad said finally. "Yes, I am the luckiest man alive," Eleanor smiled, "and I am the luckiest woman." The first snow of winter came early that year. Eleanor stood at the window watching the flakes drift down from a pearl gray sky. Nearly a year had passed since she had been walking through a storm like this, dying by inches, believing her life was over. Now she was warm, safe, home. Thad's arms wrapped around her from behind, thinking deep thoughts, thinking about last winter, about how much has changed. For the better, Eleanor turned in his arms. For the best. He smiled, that rare, full smile that still made her heart skip. The girls are asking about Christmas. Apparently, Hazel wants to make a 12-layer cake, and Willa wants to invite half the valley for a party. And what do you want, just this? He pulled her closer. Just you, just us, together. Eleanor rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Behind them, the house hummed with life. Willa's voice drifted down from upstairs, helping Addie with her lessons. Hazel was singing in the kitchen, teaching Iris a new song. Nell was racing through the halls, probably chasing the cat they had adopted in September. This was what she had never dared to dream of, what she had never believed she deserved. A family, a home, a love that did not ask her to be smaller. Thad, she said, thank you. For what? For stopping that day, for seeing me, for giving me a chance when no one else would. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Eleanor, I did not give you anything. You earned every bit of this life. You fought for it. You built it. His voice dropped. I am the one who should be thanking you for saving us, all of us. Eleanor kissed him then, soft and slow and full of promise. When they parted, Nell was standing in the doorway, hands on her hips. Are you two being mushy again? Very mushy, Thad confirmed. Extremely mushy. Gross, but Nell was grinning. Hazel says dinner is ready, and Willa says if you do not come now, she is giving your biscuits to the dogs. Eleanor laughed. We had better hurry then. She took Thad's hand, and together they walked toward the kitchen, toward their daughters, toward the life they had built from ashes and snow and stubborn, impossible hope. The table was set with their best dishes. Candles flickered in the center, casting warm light across the faces Eleanor loved most in the world. Willa sat at Thad's right hand, no longer a sullen girl, but a young woman on the edge of her own great adventure. Hazel carried in a pot of stew, her cheeks flushed with pride. Iris poured water into each glass with meticulous care. Addie had placed a sketch at each seat, portraits of each family member rendered with love and extraordinary skill. And Nell bounced in her chair, unable to contain her excitement. Can we eat now, please? I have been good all day. You knocked over the milk this morning, Iris pointed out. That was an accident. Accidents do not count. Everyone settle down. Thad's voice was warm with amusement. Let us say grace first. They joined hands around the table. Eleanor felt Nell's small fingers on one side, Thad's strong grip on the other. Around them the circle held. Willa to Hazel to Iris to Addie to Nell and back again. Lord Thad began, we thank you for this food, for this family, for the trials that made us stronger and the blessings that made us whole. We thank you for bringing Eleanor into our lives. And for her biscuits, Nell added. And for her biscuits, Thad agreed, his voice thick. We thank you for second chances and new beginnings. Amen, amen, the girls echoed. Eleanor could not speak. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full. But when Nell squeezed her hand and whispered, I love you, Mama, she found her voice. I love you too, sweet girl. All of you, more than words can say. They ate together as the snow fell outside, laughing, teasing, sharing stories. The fire crackled in the hearth. The wind howled against the walls but could not get in. Afterward, Eleanor stood at the window again, watching the white world beyond the glass. Willa joined her. It is beautiful, Willa said. The snow, it is now. Willa was quiet for a moment. A year ago, you almost died in a storm like this. I did. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Papa had not found you? Eleanor considered the question, sometimes. But I try not to dwell on it. The past is done. The future is what we make it. Willa nodded slowly. Eleanor, I want to tell you something. Something I have never told anyone. I'm listening. When Mama left, Willa's voice caught. When she left, I was angry, but I was also relieved because she was so sad all the time. And nothing we did made it better. I felt guilty for years, like I had wished her away. Eleanor turned to face her fully. Willa, let me finish. Willa's eyes were bright with unshed tears. When you came, I was scared. Scared you would be like her. Scared you would see how broken we were and run. But you did not. You stayed. You saw us, the ugly parts and the hard parts. And you stayed anyway. Of course I did. It is not, of course. It is rare. It is precious. Willa's voice dropped to a whisper. You are the mother I always wanted, and I am sorry it took me so long to say it. Eleanor pulled Willa into her arms, holding her the way she wished someone had held her when she was 16 and scared and certain she would never be enough. You never have to apologize for protecting your heart. That is what hearts do. They build walls to survive. The miracle is when they learn to let the walls down again. Willa held on tight. Thank you for teaching me how. They stood together as the snow continued to fall. Mother and daughter, not by blood, but by choice. And Eleanor knew with a certainty that went deeper than bone that this was what she had been walking toward all along. Not just a roof over her head, not just a position or a paycheck, but a family, a home, a place where she was wanted not for what she could do, but for who she was. Thad joined them at the window, slipping an arm around Eleanor's waist. The other girls drifted over one by one. Hazel with her flour-dusted apron, Iris with her cup of tea, Addie with her ever-present sketchbook, Nell with her rag doll clutched tight. 7 people, one family, forged in fire and snow, and the stubborn refusal to give up. Happy, Thad asked softly. Eleanor looked at the faces surrounding her, at the life she had built from nothing, at the love she had never thought she deserved but had found anyway. More than I ever dreamed possible. Outside the storm raged on, but inside there was only warmth, only light, only love. Eleanor Grace Brennan had walked through the fire and come out forged in gold. She had been broken and remade, abandoned and chosen, lost and found. And now surrounded by the family that had claimed her as their own, she finally understood the truth she had been searching for her whole life. Home was not a place you were given. It was a place you built with your own 2 hands and your own stubborn heart. Out of the ashes of everything you had lost, and once you built it, once you filled it with love and laughter and people worth fighting for, nothing could ever take it away.